Tonight, the minimum cost of alcohol goes up by 30% as the battle to cut the number of people dying or being taken to hospital continues. There were more than 1,200 deaths last year.
Also making the headlines, peak fares are reintroduced on the railways, with some fares almost doubling.
That'd be £9 a ticket in the mornings. That's an awful lot of money to pay for a student.
Well, I commute through to Edinburgh and that is kind of almost doubling in price.
That's a lot of money. I might have to get the buses in the morning now.
Fears over the future of Scotland's peatland as targets to restore it fall far short and look like they'll be completely missed.
And in sport, we're in Germany with Celtic as they get set for their huge Champions League clash tomorrow night against Borussia Dortmund.
I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Some of the strongest drinks have become more expensive in Scotland from today in an attempt to drive down the number of people dying or being taken to hospital because of alcohol.
Supporters say the minimum unit pricing policy has been a success since it was introduced in 2018. Now that level is going up by 30%. A senior reporter, Gordon Cree, has been following the story. And Gordon, there's some criticism this doesn't go far enough.
Yeah, John, it's that time of day when a lot of people might stop off at the off-licence to pick up a few drinks on the way home. But the concern is that for some it's becoming too regular a habit. Last year in Scotland, 1,277 people died from alcohol-related causes, something the Scottish Government has described as a public health emergency. Now that is a big part of the motivation behind minimum unit pricing. But the thing I've been hearing again and again today is the need for more help and support.
Kirsty hasn't had a drink for 7 years. Back then, she'd have up to 3 bottles of wine a night while still holding down a full-time job. These days, she runs Sober Buzz, which helps inspire people to look at their relationship with alcohol.
My mental health's improved, my physical health, my want to be here. I didn't want to be here. I would say stick at it. I would say to anybody listening to this, just get curious about what life could be like without a hangover or without worrying about how much money you've spent or what you've said to somebody and upset them. Life is so much brighter when you're not worried about how much you're drinking.
Time was you could buy super strength cider in a big plastic bottle for a rock bottom price, but those days are long gone. For the first few years, minimum pricing of alcohol in Scotland was set at 50 pence per unit. Now it's up to 65. So what does that mean in practice? Well, if 4% lager's your thing, a can of that is now at least £1.30. You're not going to get a bottle of red wine for less than £6. Vodka is now coming in at more than £17 per bottle, while if you're going for whiskey, that will set you back more than £18. Since minimum pricing was introduced, alcohol-related hospital admissions have fallen, although deaths are at a 15-year high. But even among supporters of the policy, there's now a view some of the additional revenue should be clawed back from retailers.
Number one aim of minimum unit pricing is to reduce the amount of alcohol that is consumed at a population level in order to reduce harms that's caused by that alcohol. But if the policy then has this impact of increasing profits to retailers, then yes, we would strongly argue that some of that profit should be recouped and should be invested in the types of services that people with alcohol problems today so desperately need.
The Scottish Government says it has invested record levels in ensuring access to rehabilitation and is looking at further moves relating to the advertising and promotion of alcohol.
I've commissioned Public Health Scotland to look at the evidence around alcohol marketing and advertising, to come forward with proposals on an evidence basis to see what more we can do in that space as well. So we're looking to take a number of interventions, recognising that minimum unit pricing isn't the silver bullet, it isn't the only answer.
This is the first adjustment in minimum unit pricing levels since it started in 2018. Campaigners are now calling for an annual rise to ensure inflation each year doesn't make drinking become relatively cheaper. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Rush hour commuters using ScotRail trains will see their fares almost double in some cases as peak fares were reintroduced today. A year-long Scottish Government pilot scheme to scrap higher fares has come to an end after it said low passenger numbers made the scheme unsustainable.
Train Drivers Union ASLEF is urging the Scottish Government to U-turn on the decision, which they say is a tax on workers and will force people off the railways. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
Early morning rush hour at Glasgow Queen Street station, a new working week, and with it a new price for tickets as peak rail fares are reintroduced.
Well, I normally commute from Hellwood, so that'd be £9 a ticket in the mornings. That's an awful lot of money to pay for a student.
It makes a big difference because like £5 a day for 30, that's a lot of money. I might have to get the buses in the morning now.
Well, I commute through to Edinburgh and that is kind of almost doubling in price. It does make you think twice. I think it does encourage you, especially flexible working now when you've got the option to go into the office.
A Scottish Government pilot scheme to scrap peak fares was introduced in October last year to encourage more people to swap their cars for train travel. But officials say passenger levels didn't increase enough to make the scheme sustainable in the long term.
During this time as well, there was a dispute with train drivers. You had a reduced timetable, so people were getting on overcrowded and overheated carriages. I mean, can you really blame them for not using the trains?
It was a 12-month trial. It covered all seasons of the year. Our passenger numbers did increase, but not enough to justify the £40 million of government expenditure. But what we have done from today is the extra 20% off season tickets and the 12 for the price of 10 flexi passes.
One of the most popular routes on the railway is between Edinburgh and Glasgow Queen Street, where we are right now. During the pilot, a day return would cost £16.20, but now that peak fares are back, that's up to £31.40, almost double. It's hardly music to the ears of commuters.
Most people who benefited are those who were already using the rail system and those that were earning £35,000 or more. And if you're trying to tackle poverty and if you're trying to tackle climate change, putting that resource into subsidising those fares in a difficult fiscal climate is very difficult indeed.
Train driver unions say working people are being penalised by the decision and are urging the Scottish Government to U-turn on it.
The reintroduction of scrap peak fares is short-sighted at best and a disaster at worst. A disaster for the travelling public, a disaster for the economy and a disaster for the environment. We're calling on the Scottish Government to think again. They have that opportunity. The Scottish budget's coming up and we'd ask them to look again and give the hard-working people of Scotland the opportunity to have some cash in their pocket.
The decision to pump the brakes on the pilot means the many travellers who've saved hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, will now be feeling the impact. Laura Alderman, STV News, Glasgow.
The UK government says it's doing everything it can to secure seats on commercial flights as it reiterated calls for British nationals to leave Lebanon. Strikes by Israel on the country have continued over the weekend and today.
One woman has told STV News that members of her family have been killed trying to flee the conflict amid intense bombing. She's been speaking to our reporter, Caitlin Hutchison.
They were innocent, just scared and terrified, and they were fleeing with their children and they lost their lives. For what reason? Children are dying, babies are dying. They've said they've got the target, so why is the war still going on? Why? Why am I losing my family? Why?
Besides her parents and siblings, Zahara's entire family is in Lebanon and have sent her videos of the chaos around them. More Israeli bombs dropped on central Beirut today after a weekend of missile strikes across Lebanon and in Yemen.
I feel guilty to eat, I feel guilty to drink because I know that my family back home, are they sleeping on floors, they're sleeping on the pavement, they're sleeping on the street. My family's in danger, my family have nowhere to go. Sometimes we just hear the news, oh, this building has just collapsed or this building has just been bombed. And knowing that your family was in that building, what do you think? Are they even going to get out of the rubble? Are they dead?
Lebanese officials say recent Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 1,000 people, nearly a quarter of those women and children. And many more, around 1 million, have been displaced, thousands fleeing to neighbouring Syria. Zahara's aunt is among them.
I spoke to her when they were told to flee. She told me she was in the car for about 12, 13 hours. She told me, she's like, I can finally have a drop of water, her and her son. Her son is 9 years old.
This is your cousin?
This is my cousin. He should be in school right now. He's not. He's living a war. He's not able to eat. He's not able to drink water.
Strikes by Israel in Lebanon on Friday saw the death of Hezbollah's leader as well as many of its top command. And the militant group has responded by saying it's ready to fight should Israel launch a ground offensive, something that would make getting aid to those in need even harder.
We're in touch with our partners every day in Lebanon, hearing about the challenges that they are facing in trying to get humanitarian assistance to people. Hot meals, food packages, shelter assistance, primary health care, but humanitarian assistance is only ever a sticking plaster.
For individuals who are trapped in Lebanon, the Scottish Government has been in touch with the United Kingdom Government. We've indicated our willingness to support in any way we possibly can to assist individuals who are facing those difficulties, but primarily the responsibility lies with the UK Government.
Westminster says it's continuing to secure extra seats on commercial flights for the estimated 5,000 British citizens still in Lebanon. Meanwhile, fears of escalating hostilities continue to grow as the threat of a full-scale regional war looms large. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
To other stories, and a judge has ruled the Netflix hit Baby Reindeer should not be billed as true. The series was created by the Scottish comedian Richard Gadd and claims to be a true story at the beginning of the first episode. Fiona Harvey, who says she's the inspiration behind the stalker character Martha Scott, launched a £127 million lawsuit against the streaming giant. Today's judgment means her action can move forward.
More than 90,000 council staff, including bin workers, janitors and caterers, will be balloted for strike action after local government authority COSLA decided to implement its current pay offer on employees after it was rejected by the Unison trade union. The deal, which includes a 3.6% increase, has already been accepted by the GMB and Unite unions. The Scottish Government says the decision will get money into workers' pockets before Christmas.
Conservationists are encouraging the public to report sightings of red and grey squirrels as the annual survey of the species gets underway. It follows the first death of a red squirrel due to squirrel pox in Fife earlier this year.
The deadly virus is carried by the invasive greys, which are being found further north than expected. Sol Sivright has more.
On the lookout for grey squirrels in this Perthshire woodland, there's a bushy-tailed battle underway, and it's something which concerns conservationists.
We had a case, the first case north of the urban central belt, where a red squirrel died from squirrel pox earlier this year. The good news is that we've had no further cases that we know of, so I'm trapping in this area now to test the grey squirrels to make sure that these squirrels are not carrying squirrel pox virus that could affect our native red squirrels.
James Kinniston enjoys taking his grandchildren outdoors to spot wildlife, but recently there has been a change in what they're seeing.
We've started to see a lot more grey squirrels, and sadly now sightings of red squirrels is occasional rather than every day.
We don't want to demonise the grey squirrel because, of course, it's not its fault it's here. It didn't swim across the Atlantic 150 years ago, we brought it. But that has had the effect on the red squirrels, and as you say, they outcompete in terms of the food, and they carry this virus, and it is deadly to our native red squirrels.
Scotland is home to the vast majority of the UK's red squirrel population, with an estimated 75% living in the Highlands. Conservationists say the future is looking good for red squirrels, provided the population's northern stronghold is protected from squirrel pox. That's why the public are being urged to report sightings and help to stop greys dominating as they do south of the border. Sol Sivright, STV News.
Fans who missed out on tickets to see Kylie Minogue after her show in Scotland sold out in minutes are in with another chance to see her. The Australian pop star has added an extra date to her Tension tour in Glasgow on the 6th of June next year. Tickets for the new show will go on pre-sale on Wednesday and general sale on Friday. Scotland's targets to restore its fragile peatlands are a long way off being met and are likely to be missed completely. That's a warning from a report by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. They say government must take more responsibility and ramp up the pace of recovery. Our environmental reporter Laura Piper went along to Whiteley Wind Farm in Eaglesham Moor, where extensive work to restore the peatlands has been undertaken.
15 years ago, this vast blanket bog was in poor shape. Like 80% of Scotland's peatlands, it was damaged, drained and suffering from commercial forestry. But after careful work by ecologists, this fragile habitat is thriving.
So this is sphagnum moss here, lots of different types.
Oh, this colour's fantastic.
Yeah, the colours are great. You can feel underneath us that sort of really lovely, damp, squidgy feeling. That means it's healthy, that it's containing a lot of that water.
Yeah, it means the water table is close to the surface of the peat, and that's a really good indicator, and that's what we want to achieve when we do peatland restoration.
Healthy peat stores carbon, unhealthy peat releases it. In Scotland, damaged bogs are now the cause of around 15% of our annual emissions.
So Rachel, how important is it that we get this right?
Peatland restoration is especially critical because it is a nature-based solution, so that means it's a natural solution to climate change. The carbon that's present within the peat, if we can restore that, that will stay within the peat, and also if the peatland is healthy, it will lay down new carbon as well. So by doing peatland restoration, you are tackling not only the climate crisis but also the biodiversity crisis as well.
The team here have successfully restored an area the size of Falkirk, but the scale of damage across our peatlands is vast, despite government targets to fix it.
We are seeing peatland condition failing across the board. So these are international and European commitments that we have to keep our peatland habitats in good health. And the status of these is really quite poor. Also, the data that's been provided by government and statutory bodies for conservation assessments is very, very out of date. So we can't actually say with confidence what condition our peatlands are in.
Estimates show that current peatland targets are unlikely to be met. The IUCN are calling for greater levels of funding, coordination and efficiency.
It should be said that last year we had over 10,000 hectares were restored in that 1 year. There are issues around getting the right kind of skills, the right kind of people who are able to do this work. But yeah, we're confident that we will continue to drive on because it's really important that we get the private sector and the public sector working together. It is by far the cheapest way, one of the most effective ways of us capturing our greenhouse gas emissions. So we will be striving as hard as we can to make sure we can reach that target.
It takes 10 years for just 1 centimetre of peat to form. If that target is to be reached, then every millimetre must be funded and fought for. Laura Piper, STV News.
Raman's here with the sport. We're into that constant cycle of football now. Domestic, it's good. Domestic, European, and you're leading the Celtic bit.
Absolutely. Celtic play Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League tomorrow night, and there's positive noises coming from the Celtic camp.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Good evening. Callum McGregor says Celtic will take the game to Borussia Dortmund and want to send shockwaves in the Champions League when the two teams meet tomorrow night. Brendan Rodgers' side started their European campaign with a thumping win over Slovan Bratislava and are aiming to continue their very good form against Dortmund. From Germany, Ronnie Charters reports.
It is one of the most iconic stadiums in world football. The Westfalenstadion, home of Borussia Dortmund and home to the famous Yellow Wall. This is the next stop on Celtic's European adventure in what is renowned as one of the best atmospheres in the world. Brendan Rodgers' men had their final training session at Parkhead this morning before their flight to Germany, with Cameron Carter-Vickers missing out. Now with Dortmund in their sights, the team are raring to go.
We have to attack the games, the belief in the way that we want to play the game. It's been a real good building block for sort of 12 months now. The team are looking in good shape, good profile about the team. And like you said, the confidence is high, so we have to go and try and be ourselves and take the game to Dortmund. And yeah, like I said, we try and go and get a positive result.
Celtic prepared for their Dortmund clash in perfect fashion. A 6-0 demolition of managerless St Johnstone, continuing their perfect start to the league season. But tomorrow night will be a considerable step up when they face last season's runners-up of the Champions League.
Again, that's what the Champions League's about, is trying to send shockwaves through the competition. Of course, we know it's going to be hugely difficult. They've got some real top players and real speed at the top end as well, so we'll have to be careful on transition. But yeah, we want to go and test ourselves against these guys. Like you said, get to the final last year. But we go with confidence to see what we can do.
In terms of the opposition, Dortmund started their Champions League campaign with a 3-0 win over Bruges in match day 1 and currently sit 5th in the Bundesliga.
What should I say about Celtic? It's a prestigious club with amazing talent in the squad, with a fantastic coach, and it will be a challenge for us tomorrow. But at the same time, a big challenge, huge challenge, which they didn't have this season with us, playing in our stadium. So really looking forward, and to call them the underdogs would be not fair to Celtic, to be honest.
So as thousands of Celtic fans begin to descend here on Dortmund, it's fair to say that they're coming here hopeful of watching their side write a new chapter in their Champions League story. You have to go all the way back to 2017 for the last time a Celtic side won away from home in the proper rounds of the Champions League. That was in Rodgers' first spell as manager, and that was a 3-0 win against Anderlecht. This will be their toughest test, no doubt, of this newly revamped Champions League competition. The top seeds away from home in Borussia Dortmund. But with their fine form domestically and the recent run of results Brendan Rodgers' men have put together, it's fair to say the Celtic faithful are coming here dreaming of a Champions League upset. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport in Dortmund.
Well, as Ronnie mentioned in his report, Cameron Carter-Vickers didn't train today and didn't make the trip to Germany due to a foot injury. Brendan Rodgers held his pre-match media conference in Dortmund a short time ago. Let's hear from him.
For us, it's looking to bring our game to the next level. I think how we've been performing over probably the last 6-7 months has just been increasing. You know, we're under no illusions, but we're playing against a team that are challenging at the very top end of elite football. We have to be right on it to look to get a good performance and result.
Philippe Clement has criticised the scheduling of Rangers' match against Hibs yesterday, which kicked off less than 72 hours after their Europa League game against Malmo in Sweden. Tom Lawrence's strike in the first half won the points for Clement's side. Hibs missed a penalty late in the first period. Referee Lloyd Wilson was the centre of attention at Fir Park. 2 red cards, 2 penalties and ultimately 3 points for Motherwell, who moved to 4th following their 2-1 victory. Lawrence Shankland scored a late equaliser against Ross County to end Hearts' 8-match losing streak, and Kilmarnock let slip a 3-1 lead at home to Dundee United, with the visitors equalising deep in added time. To tennis, and Scotland's Jacob Fairley is set to break into the world's top 100 for the first time after winning the Orleans Open. Fairley defeated Frenchman Harold Mayo in straight sets to claim his 4th Challenger Tour title of the year, and is set to be ranked 98th. That's up from 126th. To rugby, and Hugh Jones and Jack Dempsey are set to make their first appearances for Glasgow Warriors this season when they make the trip to Cardiff this weekend. Both will be in the squad. Cal Stein, who scored 2 of Warriors' 6 tries in the 42-10 win over Benetton on Friday, could also be available for the Cardiff clash. His leg injury isn't as bad as first feared. The coaching staff say there's more to come from the team.
It does take a few games to, use Franco's terms, to hit your straps. So I still think we're a team that's growing, but, we're not where we want to be yet, but I think we're showing some real positive signs. There's areas for growth, in set piece and finishing off those opportunities, but I think it's important that we're creating them at this stage of the season.
Finally, snooker news, and John Higgins admits he didn't hit his top levels as he lost the British Open final to Mark Selby by 10 frames to 5 last night. Leading 5-3 from the afternoon session, Selby quickly took control of the match and raced clear to end his 18th-month wait for a ranking title. By reaching the final, Higgins has returned to the world's top 16.
Thoroughly enjoyed today playing, just a bit disappointed at the session tonight, I didn't bring anywhere near a good enough game to compete with Mark. But listen, every credit, congratulations, and we played amazing. Still proud that I'm still trying to compete with these top guys, but you've got to bring a higher level.
And that, folks, is all your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Well, time for a look at what the weather has in store now with Sean.
A dry start to the day will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Now, last night I flew back from Lanzarote and there was a few big bumps across the north of France and the southwest of England as this low pressure system was forming, and it's across England where they've got plenty of wind and rain from that low pressure over the next 24 hours. For us though, look at that, a little area of high pressure building to the north of us over the next couple of days. So for us, the weather's looking quite quiet. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a lot of dry and bright weather around. Plans for Friday and the weekend, much more showery by the time we get to that. Now today, of course, we've had quite a bit of cloud. There's been shower outbreaks of rain for many of us. Most of the rain fizzling out this evening. It becomes dry with clear spells, temperatures into single figures. Particularly cool around parts of Stirlingshire, Perthshire, the Highlands. Temperatures here down to about 4 or 5 degrees, even chillier tomorrow night, 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. Now tomorrow morning we may catch just a few showers coming in across South Lanarkshire, but for most of us it is dry with sunshine through the morning. Those showers clearing away from the south as well, so a lot of dry weather with sunshine tomorrow. Should be a much better day. Temperatures okay, they're not overly high, but it shouldn't feel too bad in the sunshine. 14, 15 degrees Celsius. Now Wednesday, Thursday, with that high pressure around, there's a lot of dry weather with sunny spells. Probably the best spells of sunshine tend to be around the west coast and also across the islands. Over inland parts of the mainland, Glasgow, Stirlingshire, Perthshire, inland Ayrshire, quite a bit of cloud, and then some big changes coming in by the weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, that's all from us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.
Bye-bye.